Okay, today we'll start the nervous system. It helps if you draw your own diagram. So we're going to draw a diagram of the human brain. And it looks almost like a boxing glove. So it's kind of round at the top. On the side, there's a small area extending outward. And we're going to use a color code system. This blue area is the largest part of the human brain, called cerebrum. And it's responsible for all the cognitive functions. We'll divide it into different lobes in a moment. But let's go to the other areas first. The second area is kind of under the cerebrum. It's round with some deep grooves like this, and it's called the cerebellum. And it's mainly responsible for coordination, for maintaining a body posture, and so on. And finally, the last area of the human brain is the smallest, but it's actually the most important because it controls all your basic body functions, called the brainstem. And it begins at the center of the cerebrum with different irregular shaped areas. Some are round, others are oval shape, elongated shape. So this red area is in fact the brainstem. We'll divide into different areas also in a moment. And this brainstem will actually protrude at this opening here. If you remember from the skeletal system, when we learn about the human skull, there's a large opening at the base of the skull called the foramen magnum. And this brainstem will actually pass through the foramen magnum. The word foramen means an opening, magnum means large. And once you pass through that opening, it's no longer the brainstem, in fact. You'll continue going downward all the way to the lower back, and that's actually a spinal cord. Surprisingly very narrow, about a centimeter wide in diameter. There's a very important nerve cord connecting the brain to all your body parts, all your muscles, and so on. So that's in fact the basic anatomy of the human brain. Now let's divide each section into smaller areas. The cerebrum, again, the blue area, is divided into 4 lobes based on the same terminology we use in the skeletal system. So remember, in the front of your skull you have a bone called the frontal bone, and as a result they simply call this area the frontal lobe. In the back, where you have the occipital bone, we call this area the occipital lobe, in fact, because of that location. At the top, you have the parietal bones in the skull, so they call this the parietal lobe. And finally, this area protruding outward is right next to the temporal bone, and that's why they simply call it the temporal lobe. So these are the 4 lobes of the cerebrum, and each one is responsible for different functions. For example, the parietal lobe is mainly for sensations only. So when you feel touch, pain, pressure, even your emotions are processed in the parietal lobe. The occipital lobe is mainly for vision. The temporal lobe, because it's close to your ear, so it's for hearing. But it's also for the other two special senses like smell and also taste. And finally, the frontal lobe is the largest part and is responsible for many cognitive functions, such as memory, thinking, analysis, speech, even all your skeletal muscles are controlled by the frontal lobe. And that's why when patients suffer from a stroke in the frontal lobe, they can lose part of the body locomotions because of the skeletal muscles. They can lose part of the speech, part of the memory, and so on. So this concludes today's introduction to the nervous system. In the next lecture, we'll go into specific parts of the nervous system and talk about how each lobe in the cerebrum is able to perform all these functions. We'll talk about different parts of the brainstem, how the cerebellum works with the spinal cord to maintain your body posture, and so on.